to get solved with that organization, because what I want is I want each individual administrator in their organization to be responsible for what they do and have a way to track that information. Now, when it comes to ISA Server, the easiest way to handle this is to set up administrative roles. So, if we go and take a look in the ISA Server Management and drill all the way down, so under the Server, to Configuration, to General, you'll find an option called Assign Administrative Roles. And if I click on that, it's going to come up with a list of the users and groups and what access they have. We see here that the group, or the user called ISA Server/Administrator, has ISA Server full administrative permissions, as well does the administrators group. So, one way that I could solve my problem with my users, of basically who's doing what on the ISA server, is I could go and make sure that each of my users has a user account. To do this, click on your Start button, right-click My Computer, and select Manage. And when that comes up, we'll see on the Computer Management Local Users and Groups. If I click on Users, I see that I have the administrator there, plus I have a user called Grant, plus I have a user called Linus. And I want these two users to have the ability to manage my ISA server. So what I would do is, well, if we look at this list, it says that if they are a member of the administrators group, they will be given full administrative permissions to ISA. So, and that's my intention with Grant. So let's take the Grant user and add them to the member of the administrators group. And that will now give Grant the privileges to manage this ISA server on the same level as the regular administrator. Now, Linus is sort of my junior IT admin here, and I don't necessarily want to give him the same control. So by putting him in the administrators group, that would give him ISA server full administrative privileges. Instead, what I can do is I can click Add, type in Linus, so get his name, or I could browse for him. And then I can give him a role of an ISA auditor, a full administrator, or a monitoring auditor. Well, full administrator, we kind of figure can do absolute everything. Configure options, logging, and reporting. An ISA server auditor has full access to the ISA server monitoring and read-only access to the configuration. That would actually work well for Linus, because his job is to let me know if there's any problems with the ISA server. But I don't want him trying to fix it, because I don't want him accidentally setting the wrong configuration until he's received all his training. Now, what's this one though, this ISA Server Monitoring Auditor? Well, it allows access to basic ISA Server monitoring features. Whereas this auditor had full access to the ISA monitoring features and gave him read-only access to the configuration, the ISA Monitoring Auditor can't even see the configuration, they just get to see basic monitoring features. So that might be useful if I have a local on-site person who needs to be able to look to see what's happening on the ISA server as far as monitoring, but we don't even want them to be able to see the configuration. Now, some of these are for the larger organizations. If you're a one-man or two-man IT shop, then chances are you need full control over everything. So you would utilize the ISA Server Full Administrator. But in a larger organization, or an area where you may not have all of your IT administrators at the same level of training, you could give them varying levels of control. So we're going to go ahead and give Linus ISA Server Auditor permissions. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click OK. And should we test it to see if it works for Linus? You bet. Well, I don't remember what Linus's password is, so let me reset that for him. And let's log off the ISA server and see what he can do. So, better apply that change I just made. There we go. And we're going to log off. And let's go ahead and log in as Linus. So, Linus is just going to be a user of this system, but he's going to be able to, in the ISA configuration, configure monitoring but not change any of the actual ISA server rules and firewall configurations. So, let's bring up the ISA management. So, all programs, Microsoft ISA Server Management. Under ISA Server here, let's take a look at the firewall policy. And let's see if he can add a rule. So let's see if he can create an access rule. We don't have the permissions to perform that action. That's good. But if we go over to monitoring here, and he can go over to alerts, and see, we don't have any alerts. We go over to connection verifiers, and he can see the results of it. Let's see if he can edit it. Yep, looks like they would let him. Oh, no, he can't edit this because it's enabled. He can't turn it off, so he's got limited permissions for configuration. He might be able to change the URL, or he might not. Let's try. Let's have him try and do it to learnitfirst.com. And then we'll click OK. Nope, we don't have that permission to modify that. So he can go in and see the configuration and see the results. He just can't make changes. Now, I'm sure he can do some stuff under logging, and he could issue a query to the log to see what's exactly happening. There we go. And he can also go and work with reports, so he could generate a new report and things like that. He just can't change things that deal with the actual configuration of the ISA server. And that's exactly what our intention was, to give Linus the ability to see what's going on in ISA. You know, he can go and look and see, so maybe he took a class on ISA or he's watching some of our videos and wants to see how I've set this server up. He can go and look at any of the rules, but you'll notice most of the options are grayed out for him, or if he tries to make the change, it won't let him. You know, if he tries to add another network to this, let's see, he tries to add it and says, okay, I don't have the permission to do it. So what you've got here is the ability to have varying levels of administrators.